Hello and welcome everyone to the launch of the How to Child Rights series with a specific focus on how to use the simplified reporting procedure to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, or the UNCRC as we know it. We are delighted that so many of you are curious and interested to learn more about the development of the UNCRC reporting and also the experiences in using this new procedure, as this series is intended to be by civil society and for civil society. So my name is Marie Busk-Larsen and I work for Save the Children International, where I am the Child Rights Governance Global Program Officer. And I work very closely with our country offices and member offices in their engagement on reporting and follow-up to the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And I will be moderating today's launch together with Barbara Niemet from Hungary. We are very excited to share case studies today using this new simplified reporting procedure, aspiring that this documentation of experiences and learnings will guide other practitioners on how to engage in this new process. And we have some excellent speakers with us today and look forward also to your questions. Before we start, we have some housekeeping rules that we would like to bring to your attention. The webinar will be recorded and we will share the recording afterwards with you all, together with all the related documentation, such as PowerPoint presentation and also a written Q&A. There is interpretation available in French and Spanish, so you simply click the language option at the bottom of your screen in Zoom, and you will be able to choose French or Spanish. Please also feel free to introduce yourself, type your name and organization and where you come from in the chat box. We will add a link very shortly to a short feedback webinar survey, which we will kindly ask you to fill in by the end of the session, as it will help us also improve on how we are delivering the sessions. Feel free also to ask questions as the webinar unfolds. However, when you do that, we encourage you to use the Q&A space that you see also on your screen in Zoom. Please make sure when you do so that you briefly introduce yourself and write who you intend your question to be given to. So first of all, introducing you to the How to Child Rights series. It's a series of practical tools, and with tools we mean guidance, toolkits, and case studies. And these are developed by civil society in collaboration with academia and others. They are written mainly for adult practitioners from within the child rights civil society sector. But we also find that older children that have been trained or supported to become active human rights defenders will also find some of these tools and cases useful. The objective is to inspire each other on how to apply the human rights-based approach in practice in our daily work, and also show how we can contribute actively in making legal and political commitments to children a reality. The How to Child Rights series was launched in February this year, and a range of tools are already available on a webpage hosted by Save the Children's Resource Center. The page is being updated with new tools and a curated collection of already existing tools relevant for different themes, and that also fit the criteria of the How to Child Rights series. So please do not hesitate to contact us to share with us any practical guidance and case studies that you find useful for your work and that you think that others might also be able to benefit from. As far as budgeting has allowed, most but not all tools in the platform of the How to Child Rights series is translated into French and Spanish. So you'll have to explore what is there currently. These tools are also being tested and piloted as much as possible in different contexts, and will also be improved and updated based on the practitioners' feedback. So your guys, where you get involved. So today is the third launch of a series of webinars to launch these tools, and we will give you more information about this at the end of the webinar. But for information, the first two launches that we already had were concerning tools on children's rights and the environment, and also another on child participation. So moving into today's main session is the launch will be focused about unpacking the new simplified reporting procedure for the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. So this is relatively new and still optional for states to opt into. And we will explore how civil society can engage most effectively with this procedure by looking at some of the case studies. As an overall introduction to the reporting procedures, I will briefly show you this comparative view here where you see the standard or the classical reporting procedure vis-a-vis the simplified reporting procedure. These are some of the resources you can find from Child Rights Connect, very valuable resources. And you can see here that in the simplified reporting procedure, the process starts with the state being invited by the committee to opt in to use the new procedure. And then once accepted by the state, then civil society and other stakeholders can give written inputs to the list of issues prior to reporting, as it's called, which is then adopted by the committee and shared with the state, meaning that the list of issues prior to reporting then becomes the scope or the foundation of what goes into the state report. And upon submission of the state report, then civil society and other stakeholders can then submit written inputs to the state report, similar to what we've seen with the alternative report in the standard procedure. And then, of course, it still follows with the pre-session and the actual review and follow-up work in the simplified reporting procedure. We will also post a link to a comparative table in the chat box for you to further explore the different timelines, steps, and inputs that are needed in both of the different reporting procedures. So we are extremely happy to have Mikiko Otani, who is the chair of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, with us today. And she will present more about the approach on the simplified reporting procedure and also the opportunities and benefits that it offers. And she will also discuss why all UN treaty bodies, including the CRC committee, are shifting to the simplified reporting procedures and where this new procedure is going in the future. So with this, I will hand it over to Mikiko. Thank you very much.
This simplified reporting procedure is optional for the state parties, and particularly please remember that at this moment, the current practice of the Committee on the Rights of the Child, we send the invitation to the state parties to ask if they want to use this procedure only when the state parties don't have overdue reports. However, we decided to offer this simplified reporting procedure also to those states who have overdue reports. So please check the website to find your government has chosen this procedure. And if you find that the governments haven't chosen this procedure, however, so many years the reports were not submitted, you can talk with the governments to ask if they know about simplified reporting procedures, and you can tell them that the states can choose even though they don't receive the invitation from the committee. Finally, the timing is very important because the process starts our side. Don't wait until the government reports are submitted. Please, if you find that your government has chosen opt in the simplified reporting procedures, please check. You can check with us through our secretariat to know when the list of issues prior to report will be adopted, because this is the opportunity that you can provide input to us to influence what kind of questions will be included, because the questions and up to 30 questions in reporting in the list of issues prior to report will set the scope and the issues which will be discussed in the dialogue, which will eventually result in the recommendation to the states. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mikiko, for introducing this new procedure, all the benefits and why it was set up, and also clarifying that this will be the new de facto procedure, and that we as civil society should urge our governments to start using this new procedure as soon as possible. Also because it has these advantages for all of us as well to influence the state report from the offset as well. So thank you so much, Mikiko. I wanted to highlight this before we proceed that, again, any questions that you might have, please post them in the Q&A, and we will come back to these once we have a part in the session today about Q&A. I will now hand it over to Barbara Niemet from the Hintalovan Child Rights Foundation in Hungary, who will be moderating our panel session. So over to you, Barbara.
Thank you, Marie, and welcome everyone. Let me introduce myself shortly. I'm a psychologist and I'm working in Hungary to promote research and monitor children's rights. I also took part in the last two reporting procedures to the UN CRC, including the pre-sessions in Geneva, and I coordinated the children's participation in the latter. I'm glad to welcome our dearest panelists who will present their recent or ongoing experiences with the simplified reporting procedure. Two of these were documented in case studies as part of the How to Child Rights series. And now we will have the chance to learn directly from their organizers of this immense work. So firstly, we will have Homotso Papo from South Africa. Homotso is a child participation advisor at the Save the Children South Africa and was a child rights governance project officer in the reporting process. Secondly, we will hear Josephat Nyovu, who will present the Zambian reporting procedure. Josephat is the executive director at Advocacy for Child Justice, Zambia. And lastly, we can welcome Agnes Lux from Hungary, who is a researcher and the coordinator of the Hungarian NGO Coalition for Children's Rights, who submitted alternative reports to the committee. South Africa and Zambia is still in the middle of the reporting procedure, while Hungary went through this entire process. So it will be very exciting to learn from different angles about the same procedure. And now, without further ado, let's move on to the panelists. So first, Homotso, can you please introduce the current reporting in South Africa, its timeline and the partners? And you involved plenty of children in this process. So maybe can you share something about your experiences with child participation and what challenges and benefits did you experience?
Thank you very much, Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. As Barbara said, I've been involved in the whole process from the initial stage up until the last end, as part of the people who were consulting the children and making sure the children are actually involved in making contributions to such spaces. South Africa have been involved in allowing children or giving children an opportunity to express themselves for a very long time. Let's move to the next slide. Yes, so South Africa optioned in, accepted that they will send the report through the simplified reporting procedure in May 2019. Funny enough, or interestingly enough, it was not publicized. No one knew that South Africa is no longer submitting the report on the 15th of June 2021, but then have option for the new processors. And that actually gave us a bit of a stretch, because then for civil society organizations from South Africa, we have only discovered this on the 21st of October. And by that time, the report was actually the complete or the list of issues were actually due to the committee on the 15th of November. We requested for members to send their comments on the 23rd of October. That is a South African National Child Rights Coalition. And also in the parallel to that, we informed the children about the process and getting their consent. And you mind that by that time we were still in strict hard lockdown of COVID-19. So we tried and coordinated the children and made sure that we've got around 12 children. These are the children that are part of the Nelson Mandela Children's Parliament. And we consolidated, the children were consulted, actually, apologies, on the 31st of October. When that was happening, it was moving parallel with South African National Child Rights Coalition's consultations. And then then we drafted the report on the November. It was back to back during November. This is why we actually requested that we need an extension. We're given an extension of the 4th of December. This is when we actually submitted the report to the committee. The committee adopted the list of issues prior to reporting. And maybe the milestone to that was the children's ask were actually received 100%. They were prioritized. So 100% of the children, the issues that the children have requested were actually taken into consideration. South Africa is now due to report on the 15th of June 2022. They've already started preparing. I'm sure the CSOs will do the written inputs. This session will also include the children, where we are actually planning to have the separate complementary report, because before we combined both the reports due to time too, we could not really sufficiently consult more and more children. So this time we are planning to separate both the report, civil society's report, and also the children's report. We'll have the pre-session with the stakeholders, including the children, on October 2020. Then South Africa will go to the plenary session with the committee in January 2023. Follow up to that will be the concluding observation. So the timeline might change in the next 5 years, because this time we might have enough time for us to prepare ourselves. We moved quite in the speed of a lightning this time. And we have learned some lessons, and we'll do our research prior in the next reporting cycle. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next slide. The stakeholders in the simplified reporting procedures, we had the children from the ambassadors and the executive from the Nelson Mandela Children's Parliament, whereby it was established to celebrate the values and principles of Mr. Nelson Mandela to the children of South Africa by giving them the meaningful opportunities to participate direct and influence decisions made on their behalf, and also for us to act in the best interest of a child. Civic Children South Africa is the co-convener of the Nelson Mandela Children's Parliament, and we are now on the 9th year with the Children's Parliament, and we are also the Secretariat of the South African National Child Rights Coalition, which have got 112 civil society organizations. This is the coalition that it was actually officially launched during the midst of COVID-19. That was in 2020, and already we're able to move towards submitting the report, the simplified report, the list of issues prior reporting. Can we move to the next slide? Yes, our experience as Civic Children South Africa in terms of child participation, child rights governance program started in 2017, yes, but in 2018 already we have led the development of the National Child Participation Framework, which is actually guiding the partners and everyone involved in with the children, or involved in consultation of the children, to really make sure that they follow the ethical and meaningful standards. So we are actually currently the advisors in terms of child participation across the country, and also assisting partners and building skills, so that it is not only us who are championing this process, but then it becomes many of us. South Africa have got 19 million children, and most of them are interested in such spaces. We are also the co-convener of the Nelson Mandela Children's Parliament, whereby this is the annual event where children themselves select other children to represent them. You know, they've got the executive, their president, the speakers of parliament, and the ambassadors per province. And this is the stable structure that we are actually using as a country to create a more meaningful way of consulting the children. Number three, we are coordination and supporting children's networks across the country. Save Children have got, currently we have got 24 networks that we are actually supporting across the country. These are the networks that will build capacity in terms of the child rights governance mechanisms, in terms of the child-led advocacy. These are the children that actually take part in different initiatives that we have in the country. These are the children that submitted the complementary report to the African Charter on the right and welfare of the child. And locally or domestically, in terms of our legislations, they've currently just made the input in for children's amendment bill. The country was running the several sessions and all other sittings that we have actually given them an opportunity. And some of them, they actually really create such opportunities. Next slide, June. All right, we had challenges, of course, like I said, coordination of children with strict COVID-19 regulations. It was quite a challenging time. South Africa was on level 5 of lockdown, and getting consent from the parents or consent from children themselves, it was quite a steep, but then we managed because we have got relationships with the children. We've got relationships with the Department of Social Development, which is the part of the coordinating structures of Nelson Mandela Children's Parliament. We were able to actually get the children, the limited number of children, because we only have had 12 children. It really was because of the strict regulations, number one. And again, this was the only structure that we can actually get, not really easier, but it was available at that moment. And also part of the challenges was getting the COVID assigned accommodation. Means that we have to fly the children, we have to make sure that the accommodation is way suitable to the children and all of those. Two, it was the inadequate resource to further consult more children. We were only 2, or by that time, who had the ability to consult the children in the country. And mind you, we still had to write the reports and all of those and make sure that we consolidate all the inputs from the children and take it back to the children so that they can certify it. And as I said, the time limitation, we actually did all the processes of preparing the children, preparing the report, and also sending it only with 1 month. And it was the greatest lesson learned from us. We could see that we can actually push whenever time arrives, but then we actually robbed more children, because then we had to cut some of the thematics because you only had 12. But then in the part of the children that we had, maybe I forgot, we had the marginalized children, we had the LGBTI children, we had the children, migrant children, we also had one disabled child. So you can imagine having all these marginalized children means that we really needed to get people who will be able to facilitate the session better. But then the benefit of it is the children are actively involved in holding the government accountable. You know, after the session, the parliament, last year's children's parliament, you could see that the children really have learned about the instruments that protect the right of the children across the country, could really see that the understanding of General Comment number 5, General Comment number 19, and also General Comment number 16 was instilled in them. Hence, they were able to bring out the issues, the gaps of the country. How do we actually mitigate around them? Like South Africa currently, the custodian of the children is still misplaced, where children are still in the social development, and children have been advocating and pushing that it should go back to presidency. Through restructuring of the committees and the technical teams working on child rights to include children, children have played a critical role in making sure that all the committees that are actually working or dealing with children's issues have got child representatives in them, so that we can really get the insight from the children themselves. Like currently, South Africa will be hosting the 5th Global Conference on elimination of child labor. Children really are playing a critical role in the committee in making sure that the ethical and meaningful child participation standards are met. 3, popularization and sharing of knowledge with the networks. Children really have popularized the process. One of the quotation from the children was saying that we really did not understand how we can hold the country accountable, whether the country send the report and who can hold them accountable if we have got challenges. So right now they've really made and meet with other children in the networks, so that it becomes the more children, so that it is not only the 12 that is the executive, it is actually the entire children in South Africa, whereby they work with the children from school, they work with the children from the community organizations, the municipal junior councils, and also all other children. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Komoto, I'm sorry. It was lovely to hear you, but we need to go on. And thank you so much for this great presentation, and you have done an amazing job with such a short turnaround. And it's clear that you put tremendous efforts to make the most out of it. It was really inspiring also how you could build on existing instruments like Child Parliament. So really congratulations. And now let's move on to Josephat, who will introduce their experiences in Zambia. So Josephat, can you please tell us about the preparations, your roadmap, who were involved in the consultations? It would be really lovely to hearing your reflections on this process and learning about your successes and challenges too.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara, and also thank you for giving me this opportunity, and to everybody who's on the call. Thank you also. I know Mary must be on the call as well, so I'm not only alone here. Mary also is a backup, and if anything happens, Mary should take over. And then also, I think there are some of the questions, I think she'll be able to attend to them. So just like Barbara's mentioned, Advocacy for Child Justice did coordinate or spearheaded the coordination of a National Child Rights Forum members for the submission of a list of issues in 2019, and the process that actually began in 2018 and was facilitated, of course, by our organization, Advocacy for Child Justice, which is the Secretariat for National Child Rights Forum. I'm the coordinator of the same coalition, and of course supported by Save the Children Zambia. With the technical support, Mary herself was very closely, working with us as we are dealing with this process. So since this was a new procedure, the NCRF and the Save the Children focused on the initial steps on sharing information, building trust and consensus, building on the roadmap, working with civil society organization and the NCRF. I could also take opportunity to say that we did not restrict consultation within NCRF. We also had other organizations from outside this coalition. If you can take me to the next slide. So our process and what we did, the National Child Rights Forum held series of meetings, workshops with key senior ministerial officers in the targeted provinces prior to the preparation of the list of issues. Of course, we were supported by Save the Children. We did conduct series of activities in the 7 provinces of Zambia before the preparation of the list of issues, and we took advantage of this process and this implementation of this project that we was given and supported with support from Save the Children to get information that will actually fed into the list of issues. So the National Child Rights Forum has, of course, formed strong profession and relationship with ministries, which is government ministries, collaborative efforts that has brought about symbiotic relationship between civil society and the government in Zambia. Our approach is so much to have a symbiotic relationship with the government, where we have a mutual relationship, understanding one another, and of course not the cat and mouth relationship. So we have actually leveraged on this relationship to make sure that we have all the information that we need, and also support the government, and the government support us in terms of achieving the goals and implementation of children's rights in Zambia. So NCRF also held a series of workshops in Lusaka, meetings in the 7 provinces, when we're disseminating the concluding observations of the UN CRC, the concluding observation also from the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child. So this was also an opportunity for us to get feedback on the implementation and those recommendations and concluding observation given to Zambia from the previous reports that government had submitted. And this informed our list of issues. We also collaborated with, of course, different civil societies. Like I mentioned, I think we had 35 civil society, others from within the NCRF and others from outside NCRF. We also conducted focus group discussions, collecting data from children as well in different places, both the children with disabilities as well as adults as well. So the issues in terms of the questions that were framed, we framed the questions according to the thematic areas and target group against the indicators of child rights framework. We also collected input from children and adults during public hearings, submissions received by the Human Rights Commission as well, that also did inform our list of issues. We had also a wide range of professionals who were represented in such as teachers, health professions, apart from traditional leaders and parents and caregivers. So we made sure that we had a wide target, a wide range of professionals, and that actually contributed to the list of issues. So in summary, the methodology was necessary to take a deeper analysis of the issues affecting implementation of child rights recommendation. The procedure allowed us to use existing data, new data from the perspective of children, adults with regard to implementation of treaty recommendations, as well as helped us capture emerging issues and trends. We also recommend the same approach from others as well, those who want to take this approach. So the next presentation, slide. So what we did to achieve, so most of the questions, but what we achieved actually from this process is that most of the questions that were raised in the list of issues and submitted were included in the list of issues that were given to Zambia. We do have actually a report the government shared with us, so we have actually compared with the list of issues submitted and actually the questions that were brought before Zambia and how Zambia responded to them. So the consultation with the children was critical in defining the list of issues, and the process provided a very important platform for their participation and empowerment as well. This created a platform for children also to bring out and air out and speak to the issues that are affecting children directly, and as far as child rights are concerned here in Zambia. So in total, members, civil society consulted, represented a cross-section of 12,627 boys and 13,141 girls through the hearings and consultations. The next slide. So on our reflections and learning, our lessons in terms of what the process and what we did was that the fact that the cooperation with the ministries, the government ministries and parliamentary caucus groups, which is the parliamentarians, they gave us more details on the status of implementation of previous concluding observation, but also to appreciate the internal challenges and opportunities for child rights. And also building consensus with civil society on priorities. Priority questions is critical, considering the many child rights concerns and issues. We also had through simplified reporting, and the civil society have critical role to influence the questions based on the realities and progress and towards child rights. This actually gave us an opportunity to be in control, of what kind of issues that will be raised before Zambia. And that is a very good starting point for us to make sure that we are contributing effectively to the implementation of children's rights. So mobilization of key stakeholders ensured the process was actually consultative. The challenges that we had faced was, of course, there was tight constraints and strict deadlines to meet. Of course, the time issues was actually a challenge because we had a very limited time for us to implement this and make sure that we submit. The procedure was new, and of course, aspect of it, some of it was actually unfamiliar. So we had to learn the loops, and of course, learning on duty, so to speak. So that was actually something that was a challenge, but we managed through consultation and support from several children who are experts as well. So pulling resources from civil society to bring together everything also was another challenge. Of course, resources were a little bit scarce at the time. As you know, that this is the period which we're going through was a bit difficult. And we were just getting issues of COVID as well during that time. So consensus building, of course, was a challenge, but something that we learned from it. And we know that going forward is something that we will be experts on because it gives us an opportunity. Our recommendation will be that, the review and analysis of status of previous child rights recommendations, including observation, is key. So that actually is very key for those that will be considering to employ this reporting system or procedure, that you take time to go through the recommendations and concluding observation of the previous recommendation given to that particular country. So, and then of course, starting early is very critical as well. Very critical that you start in time so that you give yourselves time enough for you to do a good job. So this is where I end. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Uspat, it was really interesting, and congratulations for this great project. I am really amazed by the huge amount of people whom you could involve in the consultations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm happy to present you Agnes, who will talk about her experiences from Hungary. Hungary was among the first countries who reported under the simplified procedure and has concluded the entire review in 2020. So Agnes, can you please explain how did the reporting cycle look like and share your key lessons learned?
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for the Save the Children team having me here on behalf of Hungary and the NGO on behalf of Hungary and the NGO side. Let's have a look at our timeline first. So please turn to slide 1. Hungary accepted among the first states in May 2017 to participate in the simplified reporting procedure. As you know, the main difference between the procedures was, as you have heard, that the UNCRC committee introduced the list of issues prior reporting as the first step of the reporting cycle. And this document outlines the questions on which the committee, the reporting states, and all participating parties shall focus on. So the reporting doesn't start with the state's report as before, but with this more focused and shorter list of issues. 3 months before, in March 2018, the committee adopted this list of issues and sent it to the Hungarian state to answer it. And we could also send our proposals to the main topics and the questions themselves with reasoning and a proper context, of course, of the forthcoming list of issues. And we could share our views and information about current developments, trends, policy decisions related to child rights. That, as you can imagine, this is a big chance to give our views and available information to the committee in order to help them to develop a good list of issues. 2 months before, in August 2019, the so-called pre-session was the deadline to send to the committee the NGO shadow or alternative report. This report also should follow the structure of the list of issues prior reporting, focusing on new issues, developments, reactions, and comments to the state's answers to the list of issues, the written one, proposals to recommendations. As we have been among the first states to go through the CRC review using this new procedure, then we did not have any blueprint or experience on how to do this, but here it must be emphasized that the Child Rights Connect has done such a wonderful and supportive role in order to help our participation in the cycle. They had valuable manuals for an effective participation of adults, organization, and also of children in the pre-sessions and also in engaging in a session. So a big thank you for them too. Our pre-session has taken place in October 2019, and we have participated on behalf of the coalition online. But the dialogue was excellent, and I think we have learned a lot during these hours. The committee was well prepared and had a good eye on issues we had been focused on. Also, during the pre-session, our Child Rights contact had been very supportive and efficient in order to make our engagement worthy. This was also experienced during the state review session in January 2020. And we were able not only to follow the session, but also send questions in real time through Child Rights Connect to the committee. Please turn to slide 2. And let me share my views about the advantages of this new reporting procedure first. I do firmly believe that the simplified reporting procedure is a good way to make the reporting process more focused and timely, and gives a good opportunity to NGOs and other parties to be involved effectively already from the first steps before developing the questions of the list of issues. This makes us feel our opinions, comments, concerns from the field are worthy enough to be heard by the committee. It is especially important in cases where NGOs are not in a situation to be involved in discussion with the policy and decision makers at national level. In line with this, our preparatory work had been also more focused too. However, as you can imagine, it is not always an easy task, especially if you are a coalition and try to gather information related to all provisions in the UNCRC and optional protocols from all your members. And please turn to slide 3. Let me finally talk about key lessons learned and the remaining challenges. First, about the timeline, and all others mentioned this challenge already too. So the deadline of submitting a report was early August, in the middle of the holiday season. So it was not easy, or in some cases it was impossible to reach our members during summer holidays. It is absolutely understandable. Moreover, it has to be mentioned here that our members are dedicating their free time to take part in the work of the coalition normally, so it's not part of their everyday job to be involved. It's a bonus for us to have any of them as an active member. Indeed, we don't have any legal personality, and we are working as a professional network. So this type of existence causes some challenges during our work. Just to mention a few, we have various members organizations with very different advocacy strategies, capacities, resources, decision-making methods, and also different views on the state report, for example. So the report can build on information that the participating members submitted. This is why there are some topics and issues which are highlighted and others are less. This is partly the reason why we couldn't have any budget and had no budget for the reporting too, as we could not apply for funds as a coalition. The only way to get support and funding was from our financially supporting member. I mean, they finance the website of the coalition, for example. This is the UNICEF Hungary, who could reach their partners to help us, among others, to cover our expenses of editing and translating and carry out a language review of the report. This is about our challenges. So the new method of reporting has obvious advantages, and I also encourage civil society to influence states to accept the SRP. But we learned also that the fact it has no effect on the quality of reports. As in our case, the state report, for example, did not use the latest data, used misleading terms in some cases, and missed to send any information about some questions, including any response to optional protocols, like the optional protocols on armed conflict. The child participation was not a part of the process. So also our work couldn't be more comprehensive, as we are still facing inner structural operational differences and challenges. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer to your further questions here or in the Q&A. Thank you very much, Barbara.
Great, thank you so much, Agnes. Indeed, the engagement and the coordination of so many stakeholders are really a challenging task, even within one sector. And let me just add one comment about children's participation, because we conducted an online consultation and reached more than 5,000 children. And these consultations were paired with a widespread awareness raising campaign, which received quite a good media coverage and was very successful. And I think the whole process showed how a reporting procedure can be turned into a really good advocacy and awareness raising campaign. One comment is that we had very positive experiences in the pre-session. The committee was really well prepared, aware of the results of the child consultations and all the reports, of course. They made the whole process really very child-friendly and pleasant for also for the child representative. So to conclude this panel session, I'm very grateful for all participants for their great presentations. We will now move to a very short Q&A session. We want to encourage your participation in this. So I will hand over it to Marie.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and thank you to all the panelists for your great presentations. It's been really valuable to hear about your lessons learned, your successes, your challenges as well. We are running a bit behind time, but there is a question in the Q&A box for Josephat. So it's from Maria Doyle, and I'm wondering if you could respond to this, Josephat. Her question is, how did you encourage the 35 civil society organizations to hold consultations with children? Did you have funding or resources that you offered to these organizations, or did you take another approach? So maybe just briefly, very briefly talk to this.
Well, thank you so much, Mary, and thank you for that question. So what we did was that for this process was specifically handled by the coalition, which is the National Child Rights Forum, which had existing resources. So our work was to incorporate and encourage and bring together, coordinate these civil society organizations that were to participate in the process. So we leveraged on the existing budget lines already, also for the particular organization, because they have a day-to-day work that they are already doing in terms of their thematic areas. For example, if they are actually working with the with disabilities, so they have activities that are going on. So we have to, our work was to encourage the issues of questions that we needed to incorporate. So if they do have an activity, as a coordinator of the NCRF, we'll make sure that they actually fuse in that aspect in order for us to collect the data that we are looking for to feed into the list of issues. I think this is how we worked to also deal with the issues of the challenges of resources. I hope I've answered that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think actually when reading the case studies, there is an indication of how much funds that you use to do consultations, but also remind ourselves that often we have bigger programs that lie behind all the consultations, the trainings of children, the training of civil society, supporting coalitions, and all the work that goes into strengthening civil society, but also, for instance, supporting the child parliament that we saw. So often it will require more resources, but it's still, we still see this as a kind of cost-effective model for influencing the state and the implementation of children's rights. There are lots of other questions. Some have been already answered in the Q&A box. I will take the last 2 minutes just to close up the session. We will also come back to any unanswered questions in writing to you afterwards. But yes, just thank you to everyone who presented here today. This was the 3rd thematic launch, and there will be 2 more launches coming up of the How to Child Rights series. So in June, we will focus on how to advance children's rights through follow-up work to UN and regional treaties, but also the Universal Periodic Review. And the next launch in July will then focus on how to advance children's rights using the Sustainable Development Goals. So again, reiterating that this series is by civil society for civil society. We all have shared goals for the realization of children's rights. And we also therefore need you all to get involved in this series on the How to Child Rights, and also get your networks, partners, and teams involved too. We really want as many civil society practitioners as possible to make this a knowledge sharing, peer-to-peer support and child rights collaboration platform, and also for this to be part of your own agendas within your own organizations. So some of the things that you can do after this session is that you first of all visit our website, share information about the How to Child Rights series far and wide. And also please feel free to disseminate and use all the tools, organize trainings, webinars about them, and help us improve the series and its tools. So let us know if you have used the tools and want to give us recommendations for improvement. And we want, of course, to have the series growing as a platform for a sector-wide child rights knowledge building. So sharing existing practical case studies or guidance that you have or would like to recommend that other practitioners use would be very useful. You can also contribute with useful guidance and documentation of your own work. Let us know if you think there are areas of child rights that lack guidance or documented case studies, and even engage in this yourself. So we are looking to collaborate with experts and practitioners in the child rights sector to develop and review new guidance, case studies, to pilot the existing tools that we already launched and will launch in the future. You can also help us co-host a webinar on a particular area where you have expertise. And finally, if you want to partner with us in a bigger sense, we are looking to expand this series and ensure the sustainability of this initiative. So if you want to become part of a global partnership, either through co-funding this initiative or through a more close collaboration for this joint cause, then we are really interested in exploring how to turn this child series into a civil society partnership going forward. And finally, we're 1 minute over time. Please do not forget to fill in our feedback survey as well. And last but not least, thank you so much, everyone, for participating. And do get in touch with us on this How to Child Rights series. Have a nice day, everyone.